right, let's hope this is working and we have no technical difficulties. This is the Cyberpunk 2077 Community Podcast number 31. And today we are sitting with not LastKnownMeal. He is away, trapped on a what did he say? I think he's trapped on an airplane flying over Bolivia, possibly under sniper fire. Now, how that makes sense, it's up for you to decide. Madqueen is, of course, been kidnapped by Arasaka again, and LastKnownMeal and TheNeonArcade is the only one who's here, and I can't tell you what. Yeah. So I can't tell you what they're all doing, but it has something to do with super secret stuff that's happening everywhere. Oh, nope, and there's that audio. There we go. Okay, fix that. So I had the for some reason the audio clipped in there, but anyway, so it is a little bit of a quiet week as far as news goes, and as to be expected, whenever they are out at a conference or a big convention or something, it's like a lot of moving stuff there and back, and and the team members, jet lag and all that kind of stuff, and they went from Poland to PAX Australia. They were at another convention the week before that. They were at another convention last week, I think.
Mm-hmm. They just wrapped up with London, MCM.
Yes,
London.
yes. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. So, and they just wrapped up at London. So it's a really busy time for them, and we are getting more of. And this is what I was kind of mentioning beforehand, is that this PAX Australian article that just kind of popped out here on. I want to say. It wasn't Thursday, but it kind of hit the mainstream on Thursday. This interview with John Mamaeus, who pointed out some really interesting stuff. So we're going to dig into this a little bit, but this is also to point out that the things are moving. There's a bit of delay with some of the content and how it's coming out, when it's coming out, and who's putting it out. But the stuff is coming out slowly from these meetings, and it's always little gems. And this is, of course, preparing, I think, for a bigger news dump that we're going to be getting down the road later on. So, bear that in mind and kind of just keep, if you're worried about, what kind of content or what kind of news that we're going to be getting and how much of it's going to be peeking its head out before April, the answer is quite a bit. But there is a delay in the way that we get some info, just because of how they're trying to move through this very strategically, right? So, but anyways, so how have you been, Neon?
Pretty good. It's been, again, you said, a slow news week for Cyberpunk, so not a lot of content to actually dive into. So I've been kind of working on some lore, taking some time off, spending it with the Neon wifey a little bit. So it's been chilling. It's really cold here, so.
Yeah, we definitely have a cold snap. We're roughly whereabouts we are. We're not, we're up in that cold northern, always sunny place called Canada, and it's getting near this thing called wintertime. That's the one thing I got to say that I was kind of disappointed in the Game of Thrones, is they always said winter's coming, and it was such a big thing, and then it kind of showed up in the last season a little bit and never really looked daunting, aside from one or two episodes and then the end, and then that was about it. At no point was the main capital city ever dumped in 5 feet of snow, being covered in on all sides by frost and people freezing to death. And that's always kind of what I thought was going to happen. But yeah,
I actually never got past season 4 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was definitely overhyped for a little while, and at the end, you kind of did feel that some of the actors were just kind of okay, can we just get this over with? Because, and I think it happened right when they switched from, the books to their own writing, because the books weren't caught up at that point. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I think that's really where it kind of it kind of started to separate.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember a lot of backlash about the the final season, people weren't really necessarily too thrilled with it.
Well, when you see a Starbucks coffee in the
I
middle
was
of the
just about to
Great
say that.
Hall,
That's hilarious. How do you miss that?
not more, and I mean it was a bottle one week, and then it was no, it was a coffee
No.
cup, then it was a bottle, water bottle, then it was something else. Somebody had a pair of glasses on. It's like,
Someone
good
got their
lord.
iPhone out taking selfies.
Yeah, it's like you could tell like the whole cast was just like, we're wrapping up. It's like basically done now, and some people were not as like, and you can always tell that. I've been on film sets where in the early part of the and I know, sorry, we're digressing really really hardcore right now,
We'll get
but
back into it.
this is
We'll
an
get back
yeah,
into
this is a really interesting story. So the beginning of this, like I was at one where it was the kind of the beginning of the show. It was everybody's big chance, right?
it. Hmm.
So what they did is they every single person was devastated if anything was out of sorts, and everybody had their eye on like making this be absolutely 100% perfect. And like somebody like saw that there was there was a set piece that was wrong, and like one of the crew guys like ran on set, fixed it like really quickly, and because the action had already started, he dove down under the thing and huddled there until the filming was done, because he didn't want to spoil the shot. And that's how some people react to it.
That's dedication.
Yeah, so whereas down the road you have a like I was at another place where it was like, the actors weren't really into it. It was kind of like a meh thing. It was really like, it was kind of like a direct to TV thing. And this one actor and a whole bunch of these other people, they're just like, it's just like, yeah, can we get this done and over with? And it's
Hmm.
like, and you see the difference. And that's why I think some people are really really focused, and some people are not
Hmm.
necessarily. Max Durrett is in the chat. Hey Max,
What's up, Max?
do you want to join the conversation today? It's been a while since we've had you on, so if you're interested, just let me know in the Discord, and we will get you in on the call here. So, or we will try to. Can't promise anything because we're using a new chat system right now. So, anyways, the PAX Australia news for Cyberpunk. This was really interesting. There was a bunch of little things that came out. They did have, again, they played through the game footage there on the floor. We talked about that, I think, the week before. I wasn't here last week, but they did play through it. Nothing really was different other than, more people saying, yeah, no, it looks good, looks smooth. The player, like the person playing, was definitely in control. It wasn't pre-scripted at all, anything like that. And it's that kind of field or sense that I think is working, you know, because there's been a handful of people who are like, the game's looking, terrible and whatnot, and they're really kind of, suggesting that the reason why the people aren't getting their hands on the game is because it's not ready yet. And it's like, no, I think it's just that, you've got 40, 50 people, or more, 200, 300 in some cases,
Hmm.
at some of these events, waiting to get in. You can't just, pop up like 30 or 40 computers and let them go nuts for, 3 4 hours each. Like that's not really what they have, and that's not really what they want to show off yet, because they are, again, they're not showing off something that is that there's a lot of spoilers to be had if you
Yeah.
go into a certain area, if you look into a certain area. And I think that's really what they're trying to keep away from, because they want to keep the story center, and they want everybody to experience the story naturally when they're playing it. They don't want a whole bunch of spoilers out there, and
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
And having a demo like on hands, sorry, hands on, if you were to go there, kind of for an open world RPG, you're not going to even get a fraction of the scope of it. So if you're going to be there for 30 minutes playing it, and they're going to have, demo options to play the demo, you're not going to get the scope of it. It's going to be pointless. You're going to miss out a lot of the details. And then people are going to come back and report about this is lacking, this is missing, when they're not even scraping the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to have demos for games like this. Think of like maybe Forza or like a racing game. You just go in there, it's easy, right? So
Yeah, and I think, and again, it's like we're moving in the direction of new stuff coming out, and I can tell you, there's new stuff being worked on. And that's not inside information. That's just generalized. Like they clearly have a couple of steps, programs, and they're working on one thing, at a time. And as time comes and goes, we're going to see more stuff. We're going to get more info coming in November, because this is where they're going to want to start, like, really start ramping it up. December is going to be like, I don't know how December is going to hit yet, because the holiday season and so many people are busy and traveling, visiting.
Well, end of
whatnot.
December is Game Awards, right? So that's a
Yeah.
huge. It's becoming a huge
Yeah.
deal these days.
Yeah, it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So December, we've got that. Now January and February is going to be huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why this is a really good move for them is, if you want to buy advertising in November, October, and December, you're paying premium price, really top price. In January and February, everybody's starved for anything. Like, advertisers are starved, content creators are starved, just general, like, anybody writing articles and stuff like that are really, really starved for info. Yeah, so it's like
Mhm.
it's like ugh.
And that's the perfect time, because they're going hands-on. They're giving these media outlets hands-on, access to Cyberpunk, as per, I think, one of the financial briefings that Kaczynski mentioned that. So that's going to be huge, absolutely huge, right? You're going to see
Yeah.
all the mechanics. You're going to actually be able to play through, presumably, a part of the game. Maybe the Pacifica demo. I'm not sure. They might show something new. That would be cool. They're showing a lot of the game, though. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, and the way that they're showing it is, I think it's doing a pretty good job. Yeah, Max could only come on for like a few minutes, so we'll get you next time. Actually, we'll try and get you in the show either next week or the week after. But yeah, anyways, friend of the show.
He's been
Friend
guest
of
before, right? He's been on here.
Yeah, we've had him on once or twice before. So I gotta hold on, I gotta cough.
Coughing intermission. Please hold, chat.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, so upcoming, like I said, we do have stuff in the works. This is both, again, like, I'm really trying not to spoil things. There is stuff in the works coming, and there is a significant plan for stuff going forward. We know this from, like I said, we know this because this was publicly announced. They said they have a very, what was Adam's way of describing it? It was like, we have a very intense campaign planned, right? It was some wording like that. Long time. This was a while ago. I think it was almost a year ago.
Going to be substantially more than The Witcher, and then we had like 27 different content drops in between the announcement. As long as, like, on their, you check on their YouTube channel, they have 27 videos in between the announcement of The Witcher 3 and the release. So that's just maybe a fraction of their marketing.
Yes,
so it's gonna be huge.
So we can see from that, and from what they've described, and then from other things that, like, we see things moving in the water, right? It's like you can see the wake of stuff, forming here and there, and that's what's going on. We're going to get a big dump. We're going to get a lot of info. It's going to affect probably a lot of things as far as, like, the community goes. I think there's going to be a lot of community interaction, and it'll start to pick up, and I suspect that it'll probably be at its height in, like, January, February, just because it's like again, it's like you can get 60% off on advertising costs during that period if you want to run, like, TV ads and stuff like that.
And why is that?
Why it's just so if you're selling products, or if you're selling, like, you're selling anything, right? You're trying to sell it before
The holiday
Christmas,
season.
basically.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the holiday season. You that's where your peak advertisements are. Then right around the Christmas period, there's a lot of people who go out and they buy stuff. Of course, you got Boxing Day in a lot of countries. Not necessarily. It's not huge in every country, but it is there in several countries. Then you also have the kind of like the family just getting together, sitting around, doing stuff kind of together. TV does come on a fair bit from time to time. But then once you hit that January period, it's like everybody goes home, everybody gets into the grind,
Everybody's
and
broke.
everybody's broke, everybody's a little depressed. The sun's not out in the northern hemisphere very much.
With their eggnog hangovers going on.
Yeah. God, I really like non-alcoholic eggnog. Like when it's done right, it's like my favorite drink. When it's
Non-alcoholic
done,
eggnog?
yeah.
Come
So
on.
it's like, yeah, it's just I don't like the buzz. I don't like the taste,
That's
but
fair.
I really love a good eggnog watered down with like 2%, about 50-50.
Yeah.
And then you just you just kind of long drinks with that. Yeah, it's good stuff. or you throw in like half a cup or something like that in, or quarter of a cup into like a coffee or something like that. That's pretty decent too. But at any rate, so the January period's mostly just quiet and low, but people are still watching stuff. They're still watching TV. They're watching videos. But there's just not as much like interactions. That's why the advertising costs are so much cheaper, depending where you are, right?
Sure.
It varies from place to place. And then the next big event you have is like Valentine's Day in February, and then it starts to kick up after that. March to April period, it really starts to pick up there, and then it kind of gets hot because people have like they paid off their bills. The February being such a short month, it tends to hurt the wallet. But once once March hits, then they're usually pretty good. So that's typically how it works. Yes, Juan, we will talk about the whole concept of Cyberpunk 2077 being delayed.
I think
And that's actually addressed here in John Mameas' comments here with the Australian gamer. So this is actually yeah. So let's get into it. Do you want to kind of go over his highlights here?
Yeah. What part do you want to address first? Because this is a fairly lengthy article.
Just any of his quotes that you find particularly interesting.
Yeah, I actually remember this one part. So they mentioned that their streaming system was overhauled. It says, let me find a direct quote here. Visuals are on the cutting edge, blah 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 blah. Quote: the streaming system had to be overhauled because you're moving a lot faster when you're in a vehicle. So we had to rework and rewrite how all that works. There's vertical streaming now. The Witcher was almost a 2D game in comparison. Its world was flat. Obviously, we know what that means. But vertical streaming, does that mean does this kind of mean rendering? I didn't understand.
Yeah. It's the way that they render the world while they're moving, or at least that's again, there is kind of some like. There is some kind of like language and
oh sure, yeah, translation, but
translational type error, and it's just like John might be a really perfectly English speaking person, may even be his first language, but what happens when you're working over in the Polish studio, their references to certain things, their
on it, and
their language, kind of tweaks a little bit. And we have noticed this before because they'll say something and what they actually mean is like something a little bit different, right? And you don't really get that until you kind of go, oh, okay, so I see there's difference of definition, right? So I believe this is what he's referring to, but don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure it means because he's talking about it in context of how you're moving through the map and you're rendering things differently. And he's right. When you're looking at and again, this comes down to the whole map world size thing. But because they can't really get a perfect quantity on it, they've decided not to comment on it, which is weird, and I disagree. Physically speaking, you put the two maps over top of each other, and they're roughly about the same size for the most part. The maps, like, directional, you know, yeah, what do you call that? It's like the east to west, south to north thing, right?
Sure.
That's it. That's all they're counting. But they're not counting the hundreds of floors
Mm-hmm.
and the hundreds of changes of
Mm-hmm.
verticality in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there's mega buildings in the game. Those are huge, right? And they have a whole ecosystem of like of people within them doing stuff. They have activities in there, a whole bunch of stuff. I also wanted to
yeah,
mention this one. It says, and this is kind of a contrast to what they've mentioned in the past. I don't know if it was a translation error in the past, but they say, given the size and the scope, we had to do some procedural generation of the things you
hmm,
see. You don't want artists to go in and place individual pipes or
yes,
pieces of trash. Of course, that kind of makes sense. So we had to incorporate a lot of things like that into our process, create things like a trash layer. When
yeah,
I do distinctly remember an article saying, and I don't know if this was the publication kind of extrapolating and making, uh,
yes. It was. It
yeah,
was. And this boils down to that whole, like, and we've been saying for a while, it's like, look, they've been using procedural generation. Then a couple of articles came out where they're like, no, they're not using procedural
hmm
and then some fans took that like hardcore. Like, there's some people on Reddit who were like, oh, that means that every single thing was placed. And I was like, no, the highways were basically, they typed in what they wanted, and like, for the graphics for the road,
hmm
and they get this thing, and then the trash layers and all this stuff is like, they create this stuff. No, they said they're not using any of that. And you're like, okay, so you think there's a room full of like what, 200-300 employees that are placing down like,
yeah, it doesn't make sense at all.
patches of 2 inches of asphalt at a time,
hmm
and they're doing this. They're gonna have to do this for like 2 months, right, to build every road in the system. Then you get to the building, and somebody sent me this note. It's like they're building every building brick by brick, and I'm like, you're an idiot. It's like, well, how do you think the destructible environments work? They have to build it brick by brick, and I'm like, oh my god, you can't. You don't have the manpower for that.
You need
You're
to allocate your resources efficiently. That's not an
Yeah.
efficient use of your employees to make it brick by brick or trash piece by trash piece. I mean, of course, some of it is going to be hand done, but procedural generation has to be done at the game this size, right?
Now, I suspect that everything's been hand curated, right?
hmm
Like, you look at any of the screenshots out recently. Take the picture of the mall entrance, or the not the mall entrance, the Ferris wheel entrance,
hmm
or any stuff like that. It's like they go through here, and they're going to be tweaking the walls, the roofs, the ceiling, the stairwells, like every normal thing, and they're actually going through there to create, like, make sure that this stuff makes sense. And if the procedural generator kind of screwed up on something, they're obviously going to go in and kind of tweak it.
hmm
Same thing with the tents, right? They're going to go through with the tents in the tent city
Yeah.
that you kind of have in the game, and they're going to make sure that there's not two green tents that are identical sitting next to each other, when we know that that they can just walk in there and just kind of like click something and tweak it up, and then poop, done, and boom, you have something that's different than anything else there. Even if it's just a color change, shifting the way that the object is placed
hmm
and whatnot. It's like, that makes sense. It's like, and there were some people, and you want to be careful about this, because we don't want to encourage the entire population to think that CDPR is investing, literally what would be thousands of workers to work 24/7 for years
hmm
to create a full-sized city that is uniquely different in every way, shape, or form. It's like, that is, not only is that idiotic, that's just a horrible use of manpower. Like, this is just horrendous uses of manpower. That's not ever what was on the table. Obviously, they go through and they hand curate stuff after they create things, and then they have a trash layer that is actually using that really intelligent procedural generation stuff. What they were wanting to avoid in this case, which I've said before a number of times, is what they were wanting to avoid, number one, was giving you the idea that the quests were, procedurally
Yes,
generated,
yes.
like the Skyrim quests, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of, and that stuff's not that great.
Mhm.
It's fine and it was really good and it was really interesting when it first came out, all those years ago. But now we want a little bit more depth to it. It's like the community in general. It's like, people are more willing to play longer, deeper content. We see this in books now. It's like I'm in the middle of writing a book and talking with a bunch of people in the industry, and there's all these old guard who are sitting around and it's like, oh, look, if you want a book to be successful with like teens and young adults, you can't have it more than it can't possibly be more than 150,000 words. They just don't have the 75,000 words tops, because that or kind of is what you're ballparking for, because kids just don't have the intelligence or the IQ to read through something long form. And you're like,
I don't think it has to do with IQ. I think it's more attention span based.
Well, a little bit, but
with
it's
younger generations.
But again, it's like the old guard doesn't really understand that the younger generations are actually smarter.
Fair,
just collectively, they're smarter, because they are listening to things like Joe Rogan and podcasts that run for 3 or 4 hours at a time, and they're also doing it at like ×2, ×3 speed. Right. It's like you receive more information when you listen to it faster, for one, and then secondly, it's like you basically, this is not something that is a fringe thing. This is mainstream. Like, people sit down and watch Netflix and will plow through an entire season, 24, 40 episodes of TV shows in a weekend.
It's the binge culture.
It's the binge culture, and not only that, it's like we talked about Game of Thrones, and the reason why I was kind of mentioning it is because, again, this feeds into the point, is like, it's like that's a really long, big series that has been around for a really, it's in book form, it's been around for a long time, and people they gobble that stuff up because it's this huge long form work and content that's been just is being consumed on in massive amounts, and and it just goes like that.
I think as long as it's good and it has some sort of outreach that it's getting into the minds of people are going to consume it. It doesn't matter if it's 5 pages or 500.
And it's also more intellectual too, which is why I brought up the IQ thing. It's massively more IQ based, because what you have is one of the top trending trends for podcasts right now is philosophy. Right. Philosophy, psychology, theories like critical thinking and that kind of stuff. It's like you don't get that from people who turn their brain off and watch 4 hours of football.
Personal development is kind of transferred from the hands of people reading books to more podcast based. Because it's easier to kind of digest, and you get more ideas being fleshed out between two other minds instead of you just reading it and you interpreting it, right?
Yeah, and I think this is what we see when we look at what the story and the quest writing that CDPR has been doing. They've been writing this stuff so that it's long form, complex, deep. It has meaning. It's not fetch quests or like automated, procedurally generated quests, which again, they were great in their day, but and they're still. Let me again, because I don't want to be misunderstood. There are still ways that they're doing them that are really, really awesome, and there's some amazing technology being worked on in the realm of like AI and programming that is taking quests and they're able to like build these meaningful storylines, right? It's like here I'll give you an example, because this is always cool when I talk about this. So they're working on there, as in a group of people that I'm not allowed to talk about directly, are working on quest lines so that you're walking through the town, and the controller is reading your input, and it sees that you look at a particular character and you go, oh wow, that's a cool character, and you follow them and you maybe talk to them first, or whatever, and the computer is learning how, like, are you just talking to people in rank order, like some people just like, I must talk to everybody in the town to see if there's any quests, and they just go for first person that they see all the way through the town. Other people like me, I go through the town and I only talk to people that I look at and I go, wow, that looks like an interesting person, or they're doing something interesting, or they have something that I want. And the AI is taking that, working with it, and going, what does this player like? And this player likes this particular type of character or characters within the story. They like this kind of generalized look, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, suddenly now the game's like, okay, well, we've got it. This person NPC comes running up to you. It's the person that you just talked to. You kind of like them. And they're like, oh, you got to help me. My dog has gone missing, or my grandpa has been kidnapped, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh wow, okay, I can help this person. All right, well, I'm going to help this person. And by this time, say you've been playing this game for like 20 hours, right? By this time, they know that you actually like it when the NPCs come with you, or they know that you hate it when the NPCs come with you.
Mm-hmm.
So right away, it's tailored that experience for you. If you hate NPCs coming with you, she goes, hey, can you please go and get it and then come back? Whereas, like, if you're playing the game to, like, connect with NPCs and you like the story and you're like, ooh, potential romanceable partner,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you're like, oh, okay, well, you want to come with me? And she's like, well, I'm not very good, and maybe if you have a weapon or something like that. And so you like do some teaching and like, and again, if this is what you like to do, the game is already creating this stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can go through a game and have two completely different experiences with quests that are created by an AI on the go. So this is the cool stuff that we are getting in procedural generation, but it's not anywhere available first of all, it takes a retarded amount of processing power. Right. And it's not going to hit probably until at least another 3-4 years down the road. Mm-hmm. And if companies like Bethesda manage to utilize this system well, then their procedural quest system will work great. If they stay on this old, dumb, older format that they used in Skyrim and they haven't upgraded it at all, I mean, that's basically going to finish off the company at this point.
See, that's knowing a little bit too much about me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
well,
I kind of like
some
the
people
organic feeling of going into things and deciding, hey, I don't like this person, I'm going to stay away from this. This isn't for me. Having everything tailored to you sounds like a cool concept, but it kind of, I don't know, it just there's something disingenuous.
But again, this is where the programmers understand that in order for you to really like a story, they have to give you meaningful sacrifice and meaningful loss at times, and they also have to give you challenges that change the way, mm-hmm. or present you with a challenge of something that you don't want to do, because not very many people remember the storyline of some games, but pretty much everybody remembers the storyline of the first, like, what's a game that just shocked everybody and kind of, like Mass Effect 1, where you had to choose between, you could come out of that game with one less companion for sure was a guarantee, mm-hmm. or you could lose two companions permanently. In fact, you killed one of them. Right. It's like and that sense of meaningful loss, especially later on when you're playing through it, it's like they're forcing you to make a decision. That stuff is only going to get deeper and better in this system, so long as the programmers understand that mm-hmm. that concept of if you want to make somebody like really, really, really struggle, you have to have significant loss, and then you have to have a way to like claw your way back up. And this is what happens. This is why people cheer for an underdog, because the underdog's been losing the whole time and they barely managed to scrape by and get to where they are, versus a team that's just dominated the whole year.
Right, that's boring.
But then but when that underdog team wins, the amount of like cheer and adulation and like mm-hmm. the amount of like people that are happy with that mm-hmm. far precedes anything that you get from this other stuff. So as far as Kazra asked a question, Kazra, this is technology that is being worked on by people who create. They don't create games; they create infrastructure for games, and then they sell that infrastructure to companies that buy that infrastructure for programs. Basically, it's like the people who worked on the any of the AI systems in the past, where it's just integrated.
It's probably part of that deal. The game developers selling your personal information back to them.
Probably at that point. I mean, that's
That's
that
the new world currency is
a
information.
little bit. And but I mean, like I think okay, I think
It
about it
can't
like
not
this.
be. It can't not be. There's no
I think
way.
about it like this. We know that when you play Grand Theft Auto, people make horrendous choices that would be considered um, murderously psychopathic, right?
Sure.
In any way, shape, or form in normal society. And we know that basically everybody who plays it, and when I say basically everybody, I think I can only remember hearing about one case where somebody's like, yeah, I played Grand Theft Auto and I thought I'd steal a car because it looked fun. It's like I've only ever heard of one case where that happened, and the person was significantly not exactly didn't have exactly all the lights on in the
Hmm.
didn't have all the lights on upstairs, right? So information that you get from people playing games when they're playing games,
Hmm.
when it's personality or like choice driven,
It's
it
insane.
does not translate to something that you can necessarily sell them unless you're just selling them more games.
But you can definitely decode somebody's morality or decision making
No,
based off of
actually,
dialogue
no,
sequences. You can't.
no, you
I'm
can't
sure
because
you can.
people tend to make when they're playing a fantasy game, people tend to make choices whether it's based on an altered version of themselves or a
I
storied
suppose.
version or something like
Huh?
that. So, I would,
But you'd
you
have the
know,
technology to be able to notice if that's an outlier, if you are actually doing
no, because
have enough
there's
info,
too
right?
there's too many choices. There's too many choices when you're faced with something
Uh,
like that. And so it's like and it's also kind of like hard. So like yeah, you might be able to choose something if you're giving them a game that's basically Grand Theft Auto or like, a current day life sim, but how do you translate that when it's like why'd you save the demon girl? Well, because she's hot and I wanted to screw her. It's like uh, okay, why didn't you save the? Is that the same reason why you saved the dragon?
mm.
No, no, no. I saved the dragon because he was eating up another village that I didn't like. It's like, okay, how do you translate those choices from
I
that into
suppose that's
something
a little
in
bit further away, but I think at one point it will be possible.
maybe, but I mean,
You know,
it's
it'd be
something
really
that
cool if you could just type your own answers in RPGs, and
well, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Why old fashioned tabletop experiences with
Mhm.
a game master is becoming
That's a
such
great
a
point.
popular
Yeah,
thing
great
these
point.
days. It's a really really popular thing when you sit down and you're like, you know, somebody was telling me about their adventure. It's like the guy had everything prepared for this long adventure, this long quest thing, and the people sat down and basically like just the players ended up trying to decide who could like nail the as many people in the village as they could basically, and this was instigated by a female player deciding that she wanted to like show off how good she was at romancing other female characters and other
Nice.
characters because she's like you guys don't know how to do this, let me show you how somebody actually does this. And this is kind of funny because if you ever watch Community, I think it was the first episode that they did of the D&D experience, like it's like this is basically what happened there,
Mm.
right? It's like this girl was like it's like let me show you how to like pleasure some character
Ladies, some
and
fine ladies.
yeah, some fine ladies, right? And it was it's funny because that's the kind of adventure that you can have. Why go, instead of going to kill the dragon, well, why don't you just go to the beach and search for lost treasure on the beach?
Hmm.
It's like stuff like that is something that a game master can really come up with. And I said this on the podcast this week, so I'm going to say it again here just to get everybody really excited for this game. I'm hearing rumors, and this is rumors. This is not a leak. This is not a confirmed state. I've heard a rumor from a fairly trustworthy source that with the new Baldur's Gate game, they are making a multiplayer mode where a game master has like control over the multiplayer mode, and he can advance the game per role. So
Yo, that's awesome.
so when you're all sitting in the inn getting ready to go out on your great adventure, and the players decide to say, all right, I want to try and challenge you to a drinking contest.
Mm-hmm.
And so the DM can then say, all right, well, give me a roll. Give me a constitution roll. And then you can have this constitution roll to see if you can, beat in this drinking game. And then your entire party can walk out of there, drunk as a skunk. Right? And the now, the GM can like basically pop on like debuffs and stuff like that.
Sure.
Give you like a poison debuff or something like that because you're drunk, or maybe a hit to your constitution or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this is what somebody in the chat said. This is basically the holy grail of like games. Is like the ability for a GM to, go through and do this like motion by motion by motion story. And it's like, yeah, that's what Larian Studios has said that their goal has always been,
Right.
is to create an experience where, yeah, you have the campaign, right? You get the single player campaign, but where it's really going to shine is by giving GMs and community groups the ability to not just to play personalized dungeon games together online, but also showing up at a coffee shop or at a gaming cafe, setting up your laptops and having an orchestrated dungeon adventure right there. And this is great news because this is also going to affect Cyberpunk in the near future as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they manage to make this work as good as they can, then I could see that the way that at some point, not for Cyberpunk 2077, but for some point, some game after that, we might get the exact same thing treated to the Cyberpunk universe for the tabletop experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that players can get together.
Multiplayer add-on?
Sorry?
Could this not be the multiplayer add-on that they're...
For that
27.
Cyberpunk is working on? I don't think so, because their engine isn't built for it. It's not built for like turn by turn, roll by roll, slow progress controlled by a GM. I really don't think so, because the engine's just not made for it. Larian spent like 6-7 years building an engine. No, more than that. They spent a long time building an engine that is capable of that. And just in the last Divinity game.
They're a smaller studio, are they not?
Oh, well, they were a small studio. Now rumor has it they're up to about 700 programmers there. So again, another European company that in a small country who wasn't making a ton of money on some of their games, now hit huge success and managed to clinch the absolute like best idea I think that we're going to see in gaming, and it's still a little ways off.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like this has effects for future Cyberpunk games, because yes, this Cyberpunk game is going to be a great narrative, it's going to be a great world, but and it does retain as many of the roots that it has in from the pen and paper from Mike Pondsmith, but it's still nothing quite like having Mike Pondsmith himself giving you a game or a match in which you are, where he's GMing and he's trying to kill your characters off, right? Because that's what he loves to do the most. He loves trying to kill your characters in Cyberpunk. It wouldn't be Cyberpunk without Mike's vision. And again, it's like yes, they tried to integrate as much of that as they can, but these still are two very different types of games. The minute that you bring in a GM, the minute that you bring in the experience of a game master who's literally creating the story for you and reacting to it, and you're reacting to it on the fly, right? And that's a very different experience. And I don't think we're actually ready for that yet. I think what it will take is for us to see this work in a Dungeons and Dragons experience first. Then I think the community will be ready to get something like this down the road, right, with something a little bit more like sci-fi like this, or any of the other really cool tabletop experiences where you have a GM directing the story to you directly.
Someone mentioned Neverwinter as a game that tried to implement that but didn't work out.
They did, and it worked out pretty well. It's probably the best experience that you can get that I can think of off the top of my head. But even then, they did have some limitations, and it wasn't a smooth experience for the GM either. You had to get a lot of stuff pre-programmed in advance. You had to rely on a bunch of script stuff. You couldn't really create stuff on the fly, but
You'll definitely go through growing pains.
It definitely was there, and the reason why so many of us remember Neverwinter, the original Neverwinter, with such passion is because you did have that. I played on for about 2 or 3 years. I played regularly on several different Neverwinter Night servers, where the server player cap was like I want to say 64, but it might have just been 32, and you had to like. Sometimes they would like group servers, so they would have one server that was the city, and then they'd have like another server that was the out area, and then another server that was another small town, and another server. So that way you could actually like have like you had a player base of like almost 1,000 people running around, but you had to transition, and you had to sometimes wait in line to transfer from one server to the other, and whatnot. So it was very interesting, and the technology was there. And for some reason, Wizards of the Coast and BioWare never ever really chased this, because again, at that particular time, the GM experience was dying. It was becoming less popular. 4.0 was a horrible iteration. I don't care what your opinion on Dungeons and Dragons. 4.0 was trash. 3.5 was good. 5.0 has been better, but in my humble opinion, not as good as 3.5, but then again, it's 3.5, so I'm sure 5.5 might get a little bit better. And I am totally biased on this subject, 100%, Coco, 100%. I'm not saying that I dislike anybody who thinks it, but I just think you're wrong. That's fine. But yeah, the gaming community as a whole, both technical and physical, so like board games and whatnot, and pen and paper, they moved away from this, and I think we will see them return to this concept down the road once it's proven that it actually works and it's really popular. And right now we know that D&D is on the rise for as far as like people are getting together. There's several gaming cafes that host big Dungeons and Dragons groups. Sometimes they're playing Cyberpunk, sometimes they're playing other stuff, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in and around just around my local area. So
word of mouth about these things is pretty powerful, right? Cyberpunk is really adding to that tabletop word of mouth. Some people are really interested in that.
Yeah, and so I think for Cyberpunk this will continue to affect it. But anyways, moving on onto something else that was very, very interesting, in which John was talking about how their company is functioning and the release date. And he went on to mention that he mentioned some generalized anxiety over the release date, saying that you do have it's different now. They're a private company. They can't just they had to make an announcement. He didn't want them to make an announcement about the date. And for a lot of people, this is fueling the concept, it's not going to be done. It's not going to be ready. I don't think this is the case. I think this is his personal.
A lot of other releases. The Last of Us 2 had a recent delay. Doom. So people are kind of saying, hey, if the game isn't done, they're going to... These developers are going to delay their game as well. So CD Projekt Red was kind of the first person to say when it's ready, right? And people are looking at the demos and saying, hey, the gunplay is a little bit weak and needs some tweaking here and there, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be delayed, so...
So that's what we've been hearing, but I don't think that this is going to be the case for Cyberpunk.
No, I don't think so.
I think part of the reason is why he mentions why he has some trepidation about that, and is the fact that they're a publicly traded company and that they do have the financial requirement to launch. I believe, judging off of kind of what I'm hearing, I think that they actually I think that they like actually legitimately have to release it before summer. Like they have to. Like they don't have a choice in the matter.
Mm.
They have to release it before summer. And if they don't, they're going to be in big trouble.
Well,
Like huge
Bloomberg
trouble.
was forecasting they're like one of the 50 top growing companies of 2020. They're gonna projected to sell 20 million copies of Cyberpunk. Their growth
Which was
is like 500% or something ridiculous like
yeah,
that. So there are a
which
lot
is
of
which is
investors.
which is a little dumb, that Bloomberg piece about them selling 20 million copies. Do you know what they based that off of?
That seems like a very conservative. I
Yeah.
mean,
They based that off of the assumption that they're only selling Cyberpunk 2077 to the PlayStation and the Xbox.
mhm.
That's what went into their math. And this is why listening to people who don't understand anything about the industry is kind of dumb, and why some people, some analysts, you wonder why I get so angry when dealing with other analysts. It's because they're idiots. It's because they're idiots.
Mhm.
Guy doesn't even know. You remember a couple months ago when one of these idiots put out this info about, oh hey, did you know that Bethesda's next release is going to be the next Skyrim game? It's going to come out next year. It's going to be great. It's going to be announced this year at E3. It's like, you're an
You
idiot.
guys aren't even
You're an
legitimate
absolute idiot.
industry.
You forgot that they were making Starfield. Like, what an idiot. You're an analyst and you don't even know what they're working on before you open your mouth. Like, oh my
Well,
god, it's
Red
so
Dead sold
nuts.
25 million, and it was just on
Yes,
PS4.
on just consoles,
Yeah.
on just consoles. So put that together. Now you do have kind of a similarity of users and community and players, like the gameplay
Mhm.
group. You do have a little bit of a little bit of a crossover, but uh, not a little, a lot. You have a lot of a crossover. You have an enormous crossover between these two games. So yeah, you're going to get the same amount. Plus, you're also going to get a huge amount of normal people.
Yeah.
So, anyways, can you keep talking here? I just need to quickly run down. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Just hold it through.
Okay. So we'll jump to another. If anybody has any questions, drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Drop a like as well. A like would be much appreciated. We're gonna keep going down this article here. If you guys don't know what this article is, it's from Australia Gamers. It came out a little bit earlier, I think earlier in the week. There was one even before then, which had a little bit less details. This one has been released. It's got some more details. Drop it in the comments for you guys to check out. They're also talking about the Nvidia Ray Tracing. So I'll rip a quote from this one. It says, this is the game development sector that we're in, creating big, great looking AAA games. As the technology changes, we're expected to use it too, and we want to use it because the stuff keeps looking cooler and cooler all the time. We'll always keep pushing the envelope on the way a game can look, and that's one of the most exciting things about working at CD Projekt Red, getting to do just that. I think Cyberpunk is going to be a real showpiece in terms of tech, especially as this generation of consoles is fading out. I think we're going to be the one last exceptional looking title on this current generation of hardware. So they're looking into, we know that they're looking into next generation consoles, PS5, Scarlet. We know it's going to be on the PC. Uh, Arson, Arson says, always dropping a like before I even start watching your videos. Hey, appreciate that. Everybody could drop a like. It does help with the algorithm. YouTube is changing the algorithm up quite heavily recently. If you guys are content creators, they favor apparently shorter videos these days. So if you are interested in making content, maybe focus on shorter videos. Do you have any ideas for the expansion's prices for Cyberpunk 2077? I would assume it would be similar to The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, what were the prices of the DLCs of The Witcher 3? Blood and Wine. Are you talking about DLCs or expansions? Because I believe DLC was all free. 16 pieces of content for The Witcher 3, right? And those were all free. Let's double check here. Because I don't want to spread misinformation and then have people yell at me after. Yeah, so The Witcher 3 had a Temerian armor set. Here, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It had a lot of things. And these were all free. 16 pieces of free DLC content, and a DLC bundle consisting of 2 DLCs. Obviously, that's Blood and Wine, and that is Hearts of Stone. If you guys have not played that, I do recommend. Expansions were $20 each. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they weren't they cheaper than that? Oh, they were 20. Yes, but you could get them on sales on Steam later on. But they did have 16 pieces of free DLC, so I would expect, because they've mentioned that CD Projekt Red has mentioned that they will be following The Witcher 3 in this regard. So we'll get free DLC content. I'm assuming that's going to be armor, that's going to be maybe hairstyles, different kind of character packs. And then the expansions themselves, the 2 DLCs, those will come later. And then obviously after that, we have multiplayer. So we're looking in for a very long run with Cyberpunk 2077, obviously. And yeah, it's looking good. Oh,
Yeah. So sorry about that. I'm back. Yeah. Food poisoning is not cool.
I had food poisoning this morning.
Yeah. It's not fun. But yeah, they've got a really long road ahead for them. Yeah.
I wonder if they will release a roadmap, just to let us know. Obviously, that would be later down the road, right? After post-release.
Yes.
The roadmap of what's happening, but that's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah. Unlike other less reputable companies, they don't exactly they're not working on the expansions at the same time they're working on the main game. They're not pulling out content from the main game to add it in as an expansion down the road. Right. You know, they are planning and putting things together in an appropriate way to come out with the main game as full and as polished as they can, and then they'll be working on additional stuff after the fact. And I mean, looking at what they've done,
very smart. They're scaling their company with their needs, right? They're not just hiring people arbitrarily for things that they don't know that they want to create yet. They're taking their time. That's a process that takes more time, obviously, because you got to find the people. But they're scaling up with the actual game itself, or the infrastructure that they need for the game, which is smart.
Yeah. My bout of food poisoning was just a moment of pure stupidity on my part. I have 2 knives that look very, very identically the same. 2 small knives. One I had used to chop up some meat for the dogs.
Oh shit!
That was,
I know.
You know, it's safe for dog consumption, but it wasn't safe for human consumption. Then left the knife on the counter for 3 hours. Oof. Then went down and cut myself a couple strawberries, ate them, and I was like,
Yikes.
Did I use the right knife for that? And I realized, yeah, I did.
You're lucky it's not a lot worse.
I did not. Yeah.
You've
So it's been light. It's been light, but because it was only a small amount. But a small amount's all you need. Yeah. All you need. But yeah, I know my reaction. Arson. That face is what I made when I realized, oh dear. I was just kicking myself. So it's like, yeah, that's not good. And I see, in my brain, I thought I washed it. I thought it was in the sink because I had washed the cutting board and all this other stuff.
How does your immaculate cyborg brain
not remember that? Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna assume that I was really, really, really tired or out of it. So
yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. No, it was also a little dark last night, so I was trying not to wake up the dogs, and I was like, I'm just sneaking down for some strawberries. If they know I'm cutting up strawberries, they're gonna want a whole bunch of them. So
dogs eat strawberries?
Oh yeah, dogs love strawberries, or at least mine do. Dogs should always have a monthly diet of either strawberries, blueberries, watermelon, or something within those families. And the main reason is for that is, do you ever wonder why your dog eats grass? They eat it to clean out their digestive system.
They need the fiber.
Yeah, and if you give them like, if you give them like, instead of grass, if you give them like berries and watermelon, they don't see a need to eat the grass. So they don't get the urge to eat the grass, I should say. Some eat it out of just pure habit, while others, like, they're more interested in just the, like, if they could just get the fiber, then it's good. Anyways,
funny. Says strawberries are what robots call flesh.
Oh, so funny. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, that was mine. What was yours from? Pizza?
No, me and my girlfriend made nachos yesterday, and I don't know, we usually make nachos from time to time, and everything's fine, but I think it had something to do with the meat as well. It wasn't like straight up food poisoning. It was just like everybody got an upset.
Just kind of like, yeah. That's what mine was. I was like, last night I was like, I don't want to throw up. I kind of feel like I want to throw up, but I don't want to throw up. So I was like, I'll just not throw up.
And stick your finger down your mouth.
No, thank you. I hate that.
I have a friend that does that.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I can't imagine doing that on cue. I know some people who can do it on cue, and it's like, no, thank you. Anyway, sorry for the disgusting change of topic here. But yes, the expansions are going to be great, and we will see how the company really addresses them. If, like, I have to say this, there are some games where at release, they have a lot of bugs, they have some issues, especially for new games, right? Brand new things, brand new stuff, like Cyberpunk universe, right? That's different than when you're dealing with a series that's already been like Skyrim. You had Oblivion before it. Skyrim was basically just an upgrade. It was even really similar to Fallout 3 in a lot of ways, and so yeah, I understand. I really do understand how some people are wanting and expecting a perfectly polished product beforehand. But I think the Cyberpunk that we will get at release will look a fair bit differently once we get the expansions and the multiplayer. I think it'll look not a huge amount different, but I think there will be some general slight differences between those two things. And that's fine. That's good. There's no problem with that.
No, more diversity the better. I think if they have a expansion that explores maybe 2020 or the Age of Red or something like that, that'd be awesome. And then people are obviously wanting space, right? So orbital air, space travel, High Riders, Crystal Palace, all that goodness. I think people are wanting to see that.
So, and I encourage, obviously vote with your wallet and make an educated choice and play the games that you like to play. We don't work. We know and have spent some time with some people who make products for the Fallout community, like physical products, and they still, despite all of its problems, they still like to play that game, the 76 game. I don't know why, because it's just such a train wreck right now, but they have fun, and I think the main reason why they have fun is because they're playing it with their friends, right? So any game where you're having fun with your friends or your family is obviously going to be better than a game that's immaculate, that you're playing alone and that everybody nobody wants to play with you. It's like that kind of sucks. And so with this, I say basically, it's like, look, don't expect it to be a miracle. I think what we will see, just like with The Witcher 3, I think the absolute pinnacle of The Witcher was the Blood and Wine expansion. But you wouldn't have Blood and Wine if you didn't have everything else that came before it with The Witcher 3. You would, with the main game and the other expansions, the other stuff, and then Blood and Wine. I don't think you get that. And I think, and that's what I'm encouraging everybody to remember, is like you get the base game, you mess around with it, you play around with it, you finish it once or twice, you experience the world, then comes the real stuff, or not the real stuff. Then comes the that was the main course. Then comes the amazing dessert and the alcohol, right? It's like, then comes the great stuff, right? So I would encourage people not to be overly critical if it's not perfect. If it's like, it's a 9.5, but because it's not a 10, I feel like I'm disappointed. And trust me, I've seen people do this all the time. I was expecting this game to be a 10 out of 10. It's easily a 9.5, but because it's not that 10 out of 10, sir, I frankly couldn't give a damn about supporting you in any future endeavors because this game was just slightly less than perfect. It's like, oh, you really are full of yourself, aren't you? and that's what I'm talking about. Obviously with any game where it comes out and it's like a 4 out of 10 and there's major bumbles and failures of the development staff, obviously that requires, you know, the community to make their voice heard. But if it's a and I mean, just look at the reviews that have been happening for it so far. You know, you talk to Paris, you talk to these people that have gone there, seen it, and they're like, man, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Then you have other people who are like, well, you know, I considered imagining it versus like Doom, and I don't really feel that the gunplay is quite as smooth as Doom is. Well, Doom's just a shooting game. That's all that game has to it. There's nothing else that game offers other than gore. And it's perfect. It's fine. That's what it's supposed to be. But this is an RPG game, and I don't see why I keep hearing these journalists talk so critically. Well, the shooting mechanics are clearly not very good. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to be, you know, I'm going to play through the game, and I'm going to try for, just due to the fact that, you know, motion sickness and all, I'm going to be playing through a sneaky, like, ghost type character so that I, you know, if I have to go, you know, if I could just stop whenever I want to and just like take a breather, like, and the best way I think that I'm going to be able to do that is by building like the ultimate sneaky mode, super stealth.
Well, that's probably better
and
if
like,
you have motion sickness as well.
Yeah, like going through it really slowly, avoiding as much combat as I can, making meaningful choices, and taking out the priority targets that I want to. Period, and then that's it. And it's probably going to be really tough. I would love to create like a mayhem, like, you know, solo who just walks in and lays waste to absolutely everything. But just because of the way that the motion sickness causes issues, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so I'm going to let, you know, Ash will probably end up doing that, and I'll try to do the sneaky thing. And that's totally fine, and that's totally okay. But for some people, it's like, you know, they're demanding that the gunplay be, you know, comparative to the other top, what I would say is probably the top most shooter, you know, experience that most people, you know, praise, as far as like a first person shooter. And they're saying, why can't it be more like this? Well, because it has a bunch of things that the other game doesn't even possibly have. They have conversations, they have story, they have roleplay, they have this other second online world. They've got, you know, all of this other content as far as advancements and character class and styles and choices and gear and all this other crap. And you're sitting here whining like a little baby because it's not the perfect shooter like X, Y, and Z other games. It's like, good Lord. Like, good Lord. Like, ugh.
It could be a big part of the multiplayer component, though. So, I mean...
Well, I mean, but by then we're gonna get another year or more of development time, and then I think we will see that polish there. But at release, and that's what I'm saying is at release, I don't think people should expect that everything be 100% polished because it is a game that has more than one thing. You know, it obviously has room to grow, and we're going to see that by the expansions and by the time that the multiplayer hits. By the time the multiplayer hits, they very well could have decided, gee, you know what? Third-person camera is actually pretty important, you know, that changes the game completely, right? So I'm not going to bring it up again. I'm just saying they might make a decision. You know, they might realize that choices that they made are not necessarily what's perfect. I mean, again, Fallout 76. I hate using it as an example, but it's like they're like, no NPCs. That's a great idea, right? And then it turns out, no, that's one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard. Is because you're of this type of thing in this particular environment. So again, yes and no. It could be, might not be, you know, whatever. There's a whole different direction to go with this. So
yeah, they can always go back and reiterate and change things that aren't working, right? I don't think they have excessive hubris that they would be not wanting to do these things. CD Projekt Red seems like it's a very consumer friendly, you know, fair company when it comes to what they want to create.
Yeah.
So tons of opportunity there.
All right. Tyler's asked a question. What kind of politics do you think is going to be in 2077? Politics that are not representative of politics today. And I keep saying this to people is like, don't expect them to be making statements about current day politics. First of all, the timeline isn't even close to the same. Like the timeline split off in the what was it, the 50s, I think? 1950s is when the timeline basically split off from mostly normal real life,
Which time?
or even earlier. Like alternate timeline. Like this is not this isn't like, this isn't like 50 years from today in today's time. Yeah, this is completely different. Everything is
the future.
Yeah, 100% different and 100% bizarre. I think the politics that are going to be in the game is going to be based off of the things that are happening in the game and the things that are central to the story of a cyberpunk story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, and I think just like, there's a couple cases where like you can look to like other fantasy games. It's like you can't just translate this stuff.
No,
it's like I had somebody who was trying to argue with me, and they're arguing with me about what is, and I'm not going to mention the subject, but it's a very, very hot topic in today's political climate, and they're talking about this one particular thing. And their response as to why people's opinion on it should change is because in a magical universe where there's magic, other people don't deal with this issue in this way. And my response to this is, yeah, because it's magic? I mean, I really, really hate to point this out, but they have magic and unicorns in that world. You don't have that in this world. Like
technology is magic. Technology is magical.
I mean, but not like this. It's not magical. So it's like obviously you can't draw a comparison between the two because it's in one world it has magic. You don't have magic in this world, so therefore you can't make. It's like arguing the morality of like, well, should we be colonizing Alpha Centauri tomorrow? Dude, we can't colonize Alpha Centauri tomorrow. Well, of course we can. We could just use warp engines. Okay, we don't have warp engines. We can't colonize Alpha Centauri tomorrow. Well, excuse me. They have warp engines in Star Trek and in Star Wars. Why don't we just use some of them? And you're like, oh, God, I'm dealing with one of these people. You realize the stuff you see on TV is not indicative of real life, right? Excuse me. You clearly don't know what you're talking about. It's like, brain hurts. Brain hurts. Oh, dear, brain hurts. Just brutal. Just brutal.
Tyler, I do also want to mention that if you look at the bottom of the screen, it does say we're sponsored by Arasaka, so you might have some biased answers here when it comes to politics of 2077.
Yes,
pointing that out.
Absolutely. So anyways, that's my take on that. I don't want to get too much down that. All the sexy armor, no, that's something now to talk about because it's like sexy armor is like. Sexy armor is one of these things where it's like people raise like it doesn't cover everything. Yeah, but strangely enough, you never complain that when you swim across a lake in full plate, armor, you never complain about the realism of sinking down to the bottom of the ground. I've never heard anybody give that argument. Never heard anybody say, I don't like sexy armor and I really don't like that full plate and being able to swim concept or being able to jump, 3 feet into the air concept. That's just stupid. Or platforming, like, good Lord, platforming from like, one side of the one side of one castle wall to another in like full heavy plate mail. It's like, yeah, that's this thing called gravity and weight, and yeah. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about that. Mm-hmm. But like I understand the finer points of the argument, but still, it's not being treated equally, and I prefer everything to be treated equally before we talk about it. So
Sure.
That's just my 2 cents. I have a quote in my book actually. Somebody's asking about armor, and it's like, well, you know, shark and cheetah, one of the two most dangerous animals on the planet. If you're in an enclosed area and you're put against them, even with a good melee weapon or two, your chance of survival is basically within like the 5 to 10% range. Like, especially if you don't know where they are, right? Like if you're not given a, yeah, if you don't know where they are or when they're starting, it's like you're walking down a path and you're going to be, a cheetah's going to jump on you at some point. It's like the amount of people who survive that encounter is next to just above 0%. There was one guy who killed a cheetah that jumped him, or not a cheetah, a cougar that jumped him
cheetahs are like
in the
skinny.
States. Cheetahs, just like some of the, like the reason why I'm using the cheetah,
Like I don't think
they're fast. They're fast, and they go for your throat, and they know how to go for your throat. Another example, it'd be like a wolverine. Like you try to take out a wolverine when they want to kill you. It's like, good luck. Those little bastards, you can grab their back and be holding them like out away from you. They will turn around in their skin and gnaw into your arteries in your hands, and you can do nothing about it. They are vicious little creatures. They take down grizzly bears because they can. These things are like the size, like they're slightly bigger than a cat. Like seriously, it's like you. Yeah. They
have aggressive like temperaments too. So.
Oh yeah, they're super aggressive. But at any rate, what I'm saying is like, you know, it's not about the armor. It's like, you know, obviously armor is good, but it's not just about the armor. Like, holy hell, it's just not about the armor. It's like, yes, you're going into a ranked battle. Like, you know, you're drawing up military lines and you're charging each other. Obviously, armor is going to win the day in that type of a scenario. But armor is not going to win the day in a scenario like if you know, say you're hunting somebody, armor is useless. I mean, it's slightly above, you know, useless category when you're hunting somebody. Like when you're tracking somebody in the woods, you've got a bow and an arrow and they've got a sword. It's like armor ain't going to do you jack there in that scenario. Yeah. It's like well, I mean, the whole point would be for you to put an arrow in them before they even see you. That's the point of that encounter, right? And so yeah, it very much depends. In real world situations, there was oh dear, I can't remember the name of the dude. So there's a British king who took a whole bunch of like bow and arrow and some light melee into France to like take on knights, French knights who were on horseback in full plate armor. And rain happened, mud happened, and the British forces decimated the French heavy cavalry. They were outnumbered. I think it was 3 or 4 to 1. 3 or 4 to 1. You're an archer with a bow up against 4 knights on horses wearing full plate steel. And not only did you win, you had next to no losses. Like, again, armor doesn't mean crap in some scenarios. It means everything in other scenarios, but in some scenarios, it means absolutely nothing. So it's just something that I'm just saying because I hear it a lot, and it's a slow news day, so I thought I'd go into it a little bit. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's an interesting concept.
In a cyberpunk scenario, it means everything because you have subdermal armor.
Yeah. In that, I mean, it's like why buy a heavy chest plate piece when you can get subdermal armor and like change out your skin so that your skin's actually bulletproof. At that point, it's like, you know, what does it matter? You know, and then sure, it's like, yeah, some extra, you know, armor on top of that is somewhat good. It's like people always forget that that most battles in most of the history, like armor is a relatively new invention. Most battles were, here's a spear, here's a shield. That's it. That's all you need. And for some Vikings, that's literally all they went into battle with was just shield and spear, maybe sometimes boots. and that's it. And I mean, they friggin' ruled the coastline for how many hundreds of years? So it's not everything. It's not absolutely everything, but you never know. Anyways,
We're digressing.
Super digressing. Again, there's not much news.
There will be.
So there will be. You got the thing, right? The don't say what it is, but you got the thing, right?
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, you got the thing. I got the thing. Ash got the thing. Other people that we know have gotten the thing. So there's things coming. So y'all just sit tight. The marketing company, the news for Cyberpunk is obviously ramping up. We're going to get, I think, a little bit here in November. I think we're going to get something for sure at the show, at the Game Awards show. 100%. I'm just, again, no inside info. I just have a really good feeling. I really have a good feeling that I think there's going to be something really cool that's going to show up at the Game Awards. This is my 2 cents, and then I suspect that January, February is going to be just absolutely nonstop. So we of course will be on it, and we've got some other really cool guests and stuff coming up. So it's going to be some really cool. It's going to be some really, really cool stuff. And this is coming from both professional connections, and then also just again, knowing what we know about the industry, knowing what we know about what's coming up at the Game Awards, what's coming up about some other stuff here in November. It's like, look, the wake is in the ocean already. You can already see you can already see the signs if you know where you're looking. So there's things coming. There's lots of things coming.
Some pretty cool things.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, I think that's probably good to close it out there today, about an hour and a half. So
yeah, we can wrap up here. Game Awards is end of December for people asking.
Mm-hmm. Did they move it?
I believe it's end of December. Is it end of December or is it beginning?
It's usually beginning of December.
Sorry, December. So mid-December.
Yeah. I do know that they moved it again because in comparison to some of the previous years.
Yeah, they've been kind of lackluster the last couple of years, in my opinion.
It is Thursday, December 12th. So I'd say that's first quarter, this first half of the month. So yeah, still beginning-ish of December. Before the end of the second week, so that's where I'd say that. But that is on December the 12th, 6 to 8. Again, they've been really doing a ton of new trailers. We had a bunch of new announcements. I mean, we had Outer Worlds announced last year at the Game Awards, and it's a very good game. People have been doing really, really well. I'll say what I said on the podcast. I am not picking up the game until it comes out to Steam, and this is coming from somebody who knows a lot of people who have worked and who currently work at Obsidian Studios. So I drew a line in the sand, partially because I don't have the Xbox Pass on my computer, and nor can I get it. I don't think so. I'm like not gonna bother. But I'm definitely not picking it up on Epic. So for the people who've been raising that point, 100% stand with you. 100%. I want to reiterate again that it was not their choice. I cannot state this enough. If it was their choice, if the studio, if Obsidian was greedy, they would have launched it just like, that Ocean, the Pirates game, and Sea of Thieves, and what was that zombie game that released on the Xbox Pass as well. If they wanted all of the money for themselves, they would have released it strictly on the Microsoft Store. They didn't. It was their publisher who made the choice to release it on Epic. They did not have a say in the only way that they could have drawn out of that was to have canceled the game completely. That is the only way that they could have removed themselves from that scenario. They're not happy about it. They they don't have the tools or the integration or the systems that they want to run, and they also got cheated out of most of the money that Epic gave Private Division, because Private Division did a sneakily little thing. Why would they do that? Why did they do that? Because Obsidian got sold and got picked up by Microsoft, and they will never, ever, ever be publishing with Private Division again. They will be publishing with Microsoft going forward. So Private Division said, well, let's milk this thing for all it's worth. We'll take as much money as we can get from Epic, and then we'll take as much money as we can get from this going down the line, and we don't care about the loss of reputation because we're not working with this title anymore. We're not working with these developers anymore. This is the last time we're working with them. So why should we treat them with any bit of respect? So yeah,
a great attitude.
A great attitude.
Fantastic.
Absolutely love these people.
Thinking about this.
It's really, really frustrating, guys, and like I said, please don't look down on Obsidian for this. This was not their choice, but I 100% stand with people who say that they're not buying it until it comes to Steam. Mm-hmm. I am not buying it until it comes to Steam, and also I'm not buying it until they come up with a solution for the motion sickness, because it's the worst I have ever seen. I can't even watch a video of somebody playing the game on YouTube for more than 30 seconds before I just can't watch it anymore. So it's really rough. I'm still going to pick up the game at some point when it does release on Steam, because I want to support them. I know people who've worked on the game, spent a lot of time giving them praise in the past. The studio is good. They have hard workers. They've really been stuck between a rock and a hard place for so long. They've made so many great games, and they've always got the shaft end of the deal, and that really, really sucks. And I don't like it when my friends, could they be better? I suppose everybody in every scenario could be better, but I don't think it's worth it to blackball them because of this choice, because it wasn't their choice. If you want to blackball anybody, you block Private Division, because they're the ones who came up with this, and they're the ones who are not giving the developers a fair share of the cut. So
sucks.
That really sucks. Like, hey guys, we're moving your game to Epic. Well, that's gonna make everybody hate us. Yeah, we know, but we don't really care, because, well, you're not making any more games for us, so why would we care about this? Why would we care about you when we can just make and pocket all this money? But could you just say it was you? Because we're kind of like getting the crap end of the stick here, because the community thinks that we're the ones who made this choice. Well, they can keep thinking that, because that way the hate won't come down on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great game. It's got an 86 on Metacritic, so.
Yeah. No. It's good. And please, if you're gonna pick it up, please pick it up on Microsoft Studios. They get 100% of the share if you buy it from Microsoft. If you buy it on the Xbox, if you buy it on the PlayStation Xbox store, they get 100% cut of that. So 100%. If you're going to pick it up and you have the ability to do either one of those things, please do, because that's a good thing. And the game is really solid. And I'm a little turfed at Fallout and Bethesda. They put out their $100 a year.
Oh,
good
God.
Lord, just the dumbest choice ever. But not only did they do that, they also, so this is the week where the Outer Worlds came live. And what did Bethesda do to Obsidian in recognition of this game coming out? They rushed out a patch to sell the armor from the Obsidian's New Vegas game. From the Obsidian's New Vegas game, they rushed out the armor, sold it, and said, "Hey guys, come buy this. Come put $100 into this. Whatever you do, don't buy the Outer Worlds." Like, honestly, that's what it looks like they're doing. It looks like they tried to upstage them and to try and take some wind out of their sails for the game launch. Now, of course, because Bethesda's incompetent right now, they screwed that up in a major way. Absolutely decimated their fan base.
I can remember in gaming, this subscription thing is like the culmination of dumpster fire after dumpster fire. It's actually quite entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And again, I was really looking forward to private servers. You know why? I want, and this was my hope. Private servers for the 76 comes out. I buy, one or two big servers, 50, 60 people player cap, just like their battle royale. Put it into the game. Put it up. Everybody who's everybody from our community could come on play. Turn off all microtransactions on the server, so nothing you buy in the store can affect or be used within the private server. Then one server would make it like hardcore PvP. The other server would make it like super no PvP allowed whatsoever. It's just friendly, people working together. The other one's hard PvP, which means you shoot somebody, there's not that damage resistance there because you haven't shot back. It's like full bore. Not only do you drop your junk, you drop everything on your person. And you respawn back at wherever. So this was going to be my plan. And then we were going to mod up the game every week with brand new mods. And I was so looking forward to it. Then I come out, and what is it? It's 8 people per server. 8 people per server for the cap. 8 people. You can't control who comes in at all.
Holy shit.
You can't adjust any rules on the server, and there's no mods.
And wasn't it broken on launch too? It wasn't even working.
And it was broken on launch, and I'm like, oh.
That's a knee slapper and a half.
It's like they want us to hate them so much right now. And again, you look at the situation, they 100% did this because they were putting out the new game, because Obsidian was putting out a new game, and they wanted their player base to stay with their game and not to play the new Obsidian game. They didn't want it to happen. So what they do? They deliberately screwed up. It's so aggravating. It's so aggravating.
So rough to be a Fallout 76 fan. Jesus.
Yeah, it sucks right now. And like I said, we know people who I know people who still play it and they still have fun with friends and whatever, but even they're like, man, this is just getting ridiculous.
It was getting ridiculous when they found that even the collector's edition helmet potentially could have mold or something in it.
Yeah. Now, and that one was a little misreported because it wasn't all of the helmets. It was only the helmets that were sold as pre-orders from.
Right?
Yeah, the Nuka-Cola ones from.
But still,
I think it was GameStop. It was GameStop's. They had a special edition at the GameStop one. And it's like, but even though it's just like one massive colossal thing, and I really hope Bethesda just like as a whole, there's some consternation as to who keeps making these calls. I have heard from the rumor mill that Todd is not actually involved in any of the decision making behind this game currently, and has not been involved behind any of the decisions to make any of these decisions that have been made, aside from the initial development idea behind it. I have heard that this is a rumor, and I have heard that one of their biggest private investors, because it's a private company, I've heard that one of the biggest private investors is the one who's been making every single call on this game. And that Todd and Pete Hines are not allowed to comment on this because it would be in violation of their job. So I've heard this is a rumor. Do I believe it? I think it's about a 50-50. I honestly don't know the truth. It could be that it is something that this private investor is making these calls, and there's a lot of reasons for that as to how that could potentially be a thing. But I am looking into it. I'm pulling up some sources. I'm pulling up some info. I'm hopefully going to come up with something. It does appear as if Bethesda is putting themselves. We came out with this a couple months ago. I kind of hinted at it that they are preparing to go public. And if they were to go public, and if they were to sell, I don't know, if their stocks were to sit around the $100 mark, basically everybody who has money in the company becomes billionaires overnight. If they're, I mean, even if they don't hit that, if their stock averages out at like $10 or 15, which is kind of on the low side for game companies, with 100 being on the really, really high side, it could be that they are just, they really, they're still going to be multimillionaires. Most people will end up with like half a billion in their bank overnight, literally. That's possible. But again, it's like, it might be the thing. I don't know. I'm still trying to dig into this. They run their whole company like a freaking vault. Like legitimately, they run it like a Fallout vault. No information gets in or out very easily. The best place for information of inside information on Bethesda is actually to watch what they're putting copyrights on. That's how tight the company is. That's how little information gets out from inside the company. But yeah, from what I've heard, there's been rumors going around, and I suspect that it is the case, or is potentially the case, that it could be this other company who's a private investor, but they invested some $300 million in it, and they're trying to prove that this new wing can make judgment calls for games and do a good job at it. And I mean, they've been doing it horribly. If this is true, then what we will get with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are true representations of what Todd wants to make in a good game. And if he hasn't been behind any of these horrible decisions, then a lot of people who are haters of the company right now will end up with a little bit of egg on their face when they step back from it and they see that Starfield and Elder Scrolls are actually really, really good games, and that there's no microtransactions or anything like that of any serious note. That could be what happens. But like I said, we don't know if this is true or not. It could be that Todd is pushing for this because he knows that he's one of the people that's most likely, if the company goes public, he'll probably walk with like at least between $1 to $1.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of money.
Indeed.
So and like I said, this is not me defending Bethesda, because I'm saying I don't know what it is. It's either Todd is greedy and there's another group within the company who's making calls that are very greedy, and he can't, or he's not willing to say anything about it. That's possible. So is it possible that he is as much unhappy with these things happening as anybody else is? But we don't know the answer to that yet. We think we know the answer. We think we can guesstimate at the answer, but we don't truly know yet. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. I was apologies. I wasn't going to talk about it today, but I thought, what, why not? Why not push this to an hour and 40 minutes? So, anyways, not bad for just the two of us. So, any final thoughts?
No, just hopefully we get some more information. I know the last couple podcast episodes have been a little slow. We've kind of had to, I think we got derailed a couple times in the last couple episodes, but again, we don't really have much to work with. We'll get much more to work with, hopefully soon here. So we'll have a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks. Next week is on whose channel? Last Known, Madqueen. I think it's Madqueen's, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Madqueen's or Last Knowns. I'm not sure which, because we have been having people kind of flop out. So the rotation has been a little bit mixed up for a little while now. So that's fine.
Okay, it happens, and we'll be working on getting guests. As we haven't had a guest in a while, so I think it's we're probably due for one. So
yeah, we're gonna try and get Max on next week or a week after, just to kind of nerd out with us. He's a great guy to nerd out with, and then check out his channel for sure. He's got some really great takes on pop culture and stuff like that. Comes from a very interesting, very unique viewpoint. So that's called Max Drat. He's somebody with autism, and we work pretty close together when we're doing like charity stuff and stuff. So it's a pretty cool system. So
cool. Yeah.
It's a pretty good channel. not System, System Shock. And then of course we will be touching on like System Shock and some of the other games that are coming up. I mean, we'll probably even end up talking about Bloodlines a little closer to its release once we know where their release date has been moved to concretely. I think it's just kind of like, it's like, hey, it's delayed for a few months, and we don't know if there'll be another delay with that one. That one I expect there to be more delays. I always did kind of expect there to be delays with that game because it is, it's a smaller studio working on it, so, and it's a really big vision. Right. So we're hoping that it turns out right. But yeah.
Cool. Thanks for joining, chat. We'll see you next Sunday.
See ya.